Hey, it's the Badass Records Podcast, a podcast about people and music. New episodes drop Thursdays. You can find your audio where you stream or visit the YouTube channel. Speaking of YouTube, you can keep up to tabs with the pod over on YouTube or on Instagram or Twitter. The site is badassrecordspodcast.com. While you're there, please make sure to check out the merch store. Get yourself a coffee mug, a sticker, a hoodie, who knows. Appreciate you stopping by. If you want to be on an episode in person with me here in KC, hit me up at badassrecordspodcast@gmail.com. It's badassrecordspodcast@gmail.com. Appreciate you stopping by. Hope you enjoy the show. I think this is going to be the Tony Gonzalez episode 88. Sammy Sanchez back in the chair. Welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So we know one another via your dad, former colleagues, coworkers, and he did episode 30, and we talked with. Who did we talk about? We talked about Fleetwood Mac.
There was
we talked about Mon Luis Guerra. And near the end of that conversation, you should talk to my son. He knows a lot about music. What, really? So then you came and did episode 44, I think. And we did, was it Small Change?
Small Change.
Animals.
And LCD Sound.
And This Is Happening.
This Is Happening, yeah.
And then you came back 20 episodes on the nose later for 64, yep. And we did the entire Tom Waits discography.
That was a good one.
Which it really was, and there have been a couple folks on here that, I think the day of or the day before, they're like, I better see what this is all about. And that one, they're like, whoa. A couple folks have been like, oh, the whole thing. I'm like, yeah, man, it was a good time. So near the end of that conversation, episode 64, the Tom Waits discography, I threw out the idea of you coming back to do another one, and I think you threw out Floyd and Zeppelin.
I threw out a few, yeah.
And I threw out Bowie, which I think was a little... It would be quite a thing.
Like a two-parter, maybe.
Yeah.
It's a massive discography.
Which, I think equally we thought, let's put a pin in that and maybe look at something else. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I threw out the idea of Beck, and you were maybe lukewarm to it.
I've never really, before this, obviously,
right.
I never really listened to much of Beck, like the singles. I don't think I'd listened to a full album all the way through at any point. I enjoyed the singles. I wasn't, super blown away by them. But, yeah, when you suggested, I was like, okay, yeah, Beck, sure, I'm about it. I could see what it's about. Yeah.
When I might have said it again, and you were like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So another piece that your dad mentioned when he was talking about you knowing a lot about music was your end of year top 50.
Mm-hmm. Usually top 25.
Top 25 new releases from that year. Mm-hmm. And remind me, how long have you been doing that?
About 6 years.
6 years.
6 or 7 years, yeah.
And do you find that you continue to look forward to it just as much as...
Honestly, this year I haven't been listening to as much as previous years. There's some fantastic albums that have come out, probably enough to do 25 right now.
Okay.
But just in general, I've had so much else going on that I can't afford the time to just, an hour or two a day to just, these are the albums that came out this week. And just...
So let's scrap this year and go back to, just for an example, last year. Are you mindful of this in January, or is it like August and you're like, I better...
Honestly, usually it takes until about March or April for like a lot of good releases to come out.
Okay.
Because artists generally tend to like back end their music quite a bit towards the end of the year, like the holiday season.
Yeah, like now. Yeah.
There's been like a bunch of albums that in the past few weeks have come out.
Really?
As
okay.
Compared to like the first 2 or 3 months of the year, that it's just like, okay, that's a good one. Okay, there's another good one.
Okay.
But generally kind of a wasteland.
Right.
But
so if March is when there's the first little push, I mean, are you tuned in before that? Are you looking at stuff that came out in January and February?
I'm usually looking at pretty much every week, like the forums I go to, the subreddits and everything. But in general, what I do is I keep like a running list of every album I listen to, which I tend to listen to, or I try to listen to as many as I can.
On your phone?
And
or pen and paper?
I have it it's a Word document.
Oh, nice,
on my laptop. Nice. But I try to listen to as much as I can. The ones that I like the ones that I know I'm going to come back to and enjoy, I like put a little mark on them or make them red or something. And then as the year goes on, as the reds start stacking up, that's when I start like, okay, which ones of these are going to be in the top 10?
Sure.
Which ones might get kicked out if something better comes along?
Right.
And then usually by around October, November, when there aren't that many big releases left,
right?
That's when I'm usually, okay, let's start like solidifying the list and making sure that I'm happy with the ones that didn't make it versus the ones that did make it onto the list. Because there's always a few like spots 23, 24, 25 that you're like, damn, this could really go to like any of these 10 albums, but it becomes a coin flip at that point. Yeah.
And so this is a laptop or a desktop that you're
working? It's the laptop, yeah.
Okay. What all, we've obviously been living in the world of the smartphone for quite some time. And there are plenty of folks and business owners and operators that don't have a computer at all.
Yeah.
And they just literally do everything from their phone. But what are some of the primary things that you go to your laptop for?
Honestly, not much besides like YouTube videos
and
Reddit these days.
Okay.
Because like I said, most of the time I'm at work or I'm at home like watching like football with my parents or something. And in general, like whenever I have some free time, I'm either playing video games with my friends or playing video games on my own. I'm playing Elden Ring, or just browsing mindlessly.
Sure.
Reddit, YouTube.
So is Reddit the primary thing that feeds where you're discovering these new albums? Or?
In general, yeah. Okay. There's like the Indie Heads subreddit. There's the Hip Hop Heads subreddit. I'm subscribed to the Pop Heads subreddit. Okay. It's all just like people that are super into that little genre, and they're like every Friday it's just dominated by these are the albums that came out today and people commenting and talking about them. And
now they call it subreddit because it's on the Reddit platform, but it's a specific topic, right? That's the whole story behind that.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And then once it's done, I forget, do you post it? Do you have Facebook? What do you?
I actually deleted Facebook earlier this year, so going forward I'm going to have to find a different way to get it out. But
so when you would post your lists, I mean, were they typically posts that were conversation starters?
A little bit. More often than not. I mean, it didn't get like huge numbers or anything. It was just my friends. But what I would do is I would post like starting December 1st, I would post number 25 and then do like a countdown.
Kind of be done by Christmas.
Yeah. I usually took a few extra days so that like I usually put an honorable mentions between number 2 and number 1.
Nice.
So usually like December 30th or 31st with a few break days.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So tell me about deleting Facebook, and are those conversations gone forever then?
It's deactivated, I guess. So if I ever wanted to, I could reactivate it.
Okay.
But just in general, I was like, yeah, I'm spending too much time on all these. Obviously, I'm still spending a lot of time on like Reddit, but Facebook in general, I just found it to be like not, I don't know, engaging at all. It was just.
What were you going to it for?
Exactly.
Engagement?
I was trying to, yeah. Like, honestly, after a point, it was like, what am I going to Facebook for? Everything that I get out of Facebook, I get more of out of like YouTube if I want to actually watch something,
sure,
or Reddit if I'm just trying to like see what's going on in such and such and such world. Like I can see what's going on in the NFL, and then one post later I get world news, and then it's just very, I don't know, probably for my ADHD mind, it's just one thing after the other. It's like, okay, this is all stuff I'm interested in, versus Facebook, it's, you know, a great aunt of a neighbor that once posted a cobbler recipe, and I'm like, why am I looking at this? I don't really care.
Wow. I mean, I'm impressed and I'm envious because I've done it before, and I've deleted the app because for the longest time I was like I'm not. I see what this I was on Facebook often, but only on my desktop or my laptop, as life changes and a device comes in via a job or whatever. And I held out for I always felt really good about that, like not having the app. And then I found myself just like opening a browser and like going, typing in Facebook and logging in that way. It's like I'm not
still happening.
Yeah. And so I very much want to do that, but because it's literally, I mean, I'm more mindful right now than I was even a month or 2 months ago with how many times I'm opening it and looking for, hoping for engagement. And it's like,
Not getting it.
no, like almost never. And yet still here I am. So, I mean, kudos to you, man. I feel like, there's gotta be a portion of, the operational side of Facebook that is aware of that very thing that people like truly believe that they need it or think that they need it. Yeah. And it's like,
and they're trying to not change that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Let us be all you go to for everything. Forever.
I know. And it's just, 2008 or whatever, it was 2007. And it was like literally just connecting with people I haven't seen in years and seeing pictures and making hilarious comments on stuff. Right. And now it's just like, this is not that at all. And I get it. It's a business and they got to do whatever. But Reddit is it for you. Like you spend some time on YouTube, but you're not on the gram. You don't tweet.
I don't have Instagram. I have a Twitter account that I never post on. I just follow certain athletes and sports writers and musicians and whatnot.
It can be if you curate it the right way. I think it can be a good source.
But even then, like I've visited maybe 4 or 5 times in the past year.
Oh wow! Okay.
So yeah, mostly Reddit and YouTube. Whenever I do get online, it's usually that, or like I'm playing Tetris on Google or something. Just something to pass the time.
Yeah. So being freshly baptized in the banking, or not banking hours, but the traditional work hours, are you mentioned you were still in transition. How has bedtime been? Have you been pretty disciplined in that regard?
It's getting better.
Okay.
I've been definitely trying to go to bed no later than 10 at the very latest.
Right.
Like usually closer to 9. And then honestly by last Thursday, Friday, I was already getting tired by 8:30. I'm
cool.
Like, all right, maybe it's time to go to bed.
Very cool.
But now it's getting to the point, it's only been a week now again, but it's getting to the point where I'm waking up even earlier. I'm waking up at 4:30.
Your body is just telling.
I look at my phone. I'm like, I don't have enough time to fall back asleep. So I guess I'm just awake now.
Yeah.
So.
And then, so when you turn in, are you usually the last one up? Are they?
I'm usually the first one to bed. My parents are staying up later than I am now.
Okay. And then when you get up, are they still asleep? Are they up and at 'em?
I usually get up around the same time.
Same time.
Maybe a little bit earlier. But yeah, they're early risers.
Okay. Wild. Let's see. Andrew Huberman. He's like a professor at Stanford and just I think a really well-respected science person. He was on, it's been a while now, Two Bears, One Cave with Tom Segura, and talking about one of the best things you can do. And I've seen him since encourage the exact same thing. But if you can get 15 minutes of first day's light on your eyeballs, like no sunglasses, no nothing, then it'll like
stimulate.
Well, it'll align your system with like circadian clock, right. So it like
natural.
Yeah. So like if you're up that, then when it's
like sundown.
Yeah, your body's like.
It's about that time, y'all.
Yeah, and I was like, I totally want to do that, but oh man,
I also don't want to do that at all.
Yeah, I would also sleep till 10 if I could. But anyway, so we agreed on Beck, and you said you had heard singles. And do you remember-ish, like the first time you heard something by him, where you were?
Honestly, I remember. Okay, so I remember hearing "Loser" all the time growing up. And it was like almost a joke song when I was first listening to it. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm a loser, baby. He's talking in Spanish during the chorus. The lyrics make no sense. I get it. It's funny, whatever.
Get funky on the cheese whiz.
Exactly, yeah. All the weird interludes. Yeah. I was like, okay, whatever this guy's doing, I'm about it. It's fine, I guess. And then I remember one day, I think it was during high school, I was driving into school, and Where It's At came on the radio, and I didn't recognize it as Beck at first,
right?
Because all I ever heard was "Loser,"
right?
And the voice was kind of similar, but he was a little more singing than he was in Beck in "Loser," where it's just talking the lyrics through.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is nice, and then the chorus hit, and like the "Where It's At" just like screaming at you, and I was like,
is that
okay? That's pretty cool.
2 turntables and a micro.
Exactly, yeah. And I was blown away at that time.
Okay.
It was a pretty great song. Still probably one of my favorite Beck songs.
It's a great one, but it's like I don't want to hear that anymore. Like I gotta keep moving.
I've listened to so much Beck, man. The last few months, it's been so much. Very varying degrees of enjoyment across his albums.
Well said.
Yeah.
So Loser for me also, and it was like just everywhere.
It's too much.
And I don't want to like play into what I guess folks were thinking / saying back then, but it felt like this is probably going to be the only thing this guy does.
Yeah.
And then that was very clearly not the case. I mean, he's been, kind of as consistent as you would see anywhere, I think, in terms of putting stuff out. But I thought, so that's Mellow Gold. I thought that was his first, and it wasn't. And it looks...
Yeah, he had was it 3 albums or 4 albums before that, maybe?
Well...
I think it was 3, because then One Foot in the Grave was after that.
Right. Yeah. Golden Feelings...
the first 2 I couldn't find them.
I couldn't find Golden Feelings
online
at all.
Yeah.
1993, 17 tracks, 42 minutes. Interesting to me, AllMusic said, an extremely interesting, entertaining, and humorous document that proves that from the start Beck had his heart set on making experimentation his only gimmick. And I think that's crafted as a compliment.
I was going to say, it sounds a little harsh at the end.
Yeah.
Gimmick is usually like a kind of a negative connotation.
As an artist, you wouldn't want somebody to say,
it's just a gimmick.
That gimmicky Sammy over there, just exactly. Putting out another whatever record. For me personally, taking away gimmick and I'm left with experimentation.
That's definitely his,
and I feel like that's
his specialty.
Yeah. But it doesn't feel experimental Well, it does in parts. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I couldn't find that one.
Yeah, no idea what it sounds like.
So then, we have Stereophonic Soul Manure. 1994, 25 tracks, 65 minutes. Did you have a chance to give this one a spin?
I did, yeah. I listened to it a few times.
A few times.
I tried to listen to all these, the ones that I could stomach a few listens of.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
This one, at least I found it interesting enough. There was a lot of. I tried to go through like in chronological order. So this is the one I started with. I was like, okay, I've listened to Loser. I've listened to some of the later singles. This sounds like none of that whatsoever. You could hear some of like the, if you want to call it the folky part of Loser, like that guitar, that twang. Yeah. It's just a super lo-fi record, just raw, and honestly, just a lot of it does not do much for me at all. But there are a few songs, like looking through like Rowboat's fun. The Spirit Moves Me is good. But in general, like Satan Gave Me a Taco, I could not stand. There's just so much on here that listening to it, I was like, okay, yeah, we can move on to the next one.
I couldn't wait to get through it.
This is not it for me.
I was like, I hope that there's nothing else that sounds like that, and I don't think that wound up being the case. So then we get to Mellow Gold, 94, 16 tracks, 37 minutes. Loser puts him on the map. What beyond Loser did you have in terms of a takeaway from this one?
Honestly, another album that, like, this is very much a follow-up to this. Like, it's the same, like, not quite as lo-fi. It's a little more polished here and there.
Yeah.
It's more structured, for sure. There aren't as many just noise interludes and just random screeches of whatchamacallits in the background. This is actually, songs. And most of them, I'd say, are decent to good. But still, overall, not something that I really came back to very much when I was going through his discography. Like, there are certain albums later on that I was like, okay, this is one that I'm going to like and, like, come back to. And there are some that I was like, after this podcast, I'm never listening to this again.
I mean,
you could not pay me to.
I won't put it, well said in the follow-up sense, because I think it is, I mean, technically it is that. But I didn't have the same, like, I can't wait to be done with this. But also I was like, I'm struggling to stick around.
Yeah.
And it's like Loser almost is one of these kids that's doing its own thing, the little Sesame Street skit. It's like, it's weird. It's a
one
weird.
One of these things is not like the.
Yeah, exactly. Because it doesn't, I don't know. It sticks out, that track.
I will say Black Hole. Great closer.
Okay.
I really like that song. That was a great song.
Very nice. So, yeah, man, Golden Feelings in 93, and then I did a double take when I saw that Stereopathic Soul Manure and Mellow Gold were both in 1994, and just a month apart. And then I was like, well, how long did it take for the next one to come out? And I was like, same fucking year?
Yeah.
And
he was really going through it.
One Foot in the Grave, recorded before Mellow Gold.
I was gonna say, I think this was like the reason it came out so soon is because all this stuff was recorded like around the same time,
but not released until some success.
Exactly.
And then it was like, all right, let's.
I'm sure it might have never been released. If the Loser had become like the mega hit that it did.
What about so if we can call Mellow Gold a follow-up to Stereopathic Soul Manure, did this one feel a follow-up to Mellow Gold to you, or do you feel like he pivoted a little bit? In a
sense, I think it kind of went back from Mellow Gold. Like, Mellow Gold was like honestly sounded like it could have come out after this, because it did get written, I guess, after this. But this is like almost a folk record, a noisy folk record, but a folk record. It's just him and I don't remember the other guy's name that he collaborated with, but it's just them two singing some folk songs. It's earnest. It's like not as, tongue-in-cheek and sarcastic as like later Beck albums would be. It sounds very much not like anything else he would ever do, I think. in terms of just like the sound of it.
Right.
There were albums where it was like more stripped back, but this is like as raw in a good way, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, whereas Stereopathic Soul Manure was raw just for being like noisy.
How
and
raw can
in
we
your
be?
face,
Yeah.
This was more raw because, like, okay, we don't need to doll it up or anything. We have like good songwriting, good production quality here. We can make this work. But
so if you didn't know and you're just listening to these three sort of blindly, like what influences would you assign to him that he was into and is maybe it comes out in his music a little bit?
Definitely, like I said, some lo-fi stuff like the 80s and early 90s. There was like Daniel Johnston. There was band like the lo-fi indie part, like Pavement and stuff like that.
Okay.
I could definitely like.
How
that
early
really
was Pavement making music?
I think they started like late 80s.
Did they really? Okay.
And then I think Slanted and Enchanted came out like 92, 93. But yeah, it's that very like sarcastic, very just I'm throwing words out there that kind of string together into a meaningful sentence here and there, but in general it's just the rawness, the energy, and that's kind of what I got from Mellow Gold. From One Foot in the Grave, it was a lot more just I'm not gonna say Bob Dylan, but like that kind of like 60s just one like Woody Guthrie style, just one man and a guitar speaking the truth, and not nearly as like political as that stuff was. This was a lot more like personal and just like kind of observing what was going on around him at the time. But like I said, He's a Mighty Good Leader is a really good song. Burnt Orange Peel is a great song. Asshole's really good. It's a really solid album.
It is.
This is the first one like going through chronologically. Like I forced myself through Stereopathic. Yellow Gold was like, okay, it's a little better. This was where I was like, okay, maybe I might enjoy some of these going forward.
I felt like
a weight off
my shoulders relaxed a little bit, and I was like, all right, okay, I can
tolerate this. This won't be the end of the world.
Yeah. Which, coming from all right, so knowing Loser, and then really there's a record that we'll get to that strangely I know inside and out, up and down, left and right, and it's like how did we get from this to this? So I was curious, like, to sort of not necessarily, I don't have to see a linear, but I need to know a little bit more than
fill in the gaps a little bit, And it's a very non-linear path. Like, his discography is just twists and turns.
I know. So, similar experiences, get me out of here to, all right, not quite so, abrasive or unpleasant, to, oh, okay, this is not, so then what's next was my question. And Odelay, 1996, 14 tracks, 54 minutes, and hits.
Very many hits.
Galore. Yes. He's back on the map.
Could have been a greatest hits album, honestly.
But he's doing things differently, as no surprise by this point. What is your takeaway from this one?
I'd say this is not, I wouldn't say my favorite album of his, definitely one of.
Okay.
But I'd say this is his most like Beck album. Like, this is when you think of Beck, you think of like the hip hop like break beats and like the acoustic implementations, and like it's just a whole amalgamation of stuff, like Where It's At, Devil's Haircut. That riff, one of the gnarliest riffs.
Is that? Okay.
Amazing riff. Comes back again. Every time it comes back, you're like, God damn, that is a good riff.
Yeah.
Hot Wax, amazing song. That's a lot more like hip hop influenced.
Yep.
It's just great song after great song. There's a few songs that I'm not super in love with, but even those, I'm like, okay, I get it. It's fine. It fits in the album. It fits with the vibe. Except for High Five, Rock the Catskills. I cannot stand that song whatsoever.
So yeah, man. I mean, he's like I said, as consistent as you might expect anyone who's put out a bunch of records to be. A whole bunch right there early, a couple years off in between One Foot in the Grave and Odelay, and then a couple years again to get us to 1998 with Mutations. 11 tracks, 49 minutes, a Grammy for Best Alternative Music Album.
He got it.
Tell me about Mutations.
A bit of a step back for me, personally. Again, a few good songs that I enjoyed. Cold Brains is good. I didn't really like Nobody's Fault But My Own. Tropicalia is a fantastic song, I thought. Oh Maria is really good. There's some really good songs on here, but overall, it didn't have the consistency that Odelay did. And like even the best song on here, I don't think could compete with some of the even lesser songs on here.
Interesting.
Not to say they're bad songs by any means. This was just a really, really good album.
Yeah.
This is more of just like okay, Beck's taking it easy now. It's not quite as in your face. It's a lot more just songwriting.
Yeah,
now.
I'm glad you said that because he's taking it easy now. So if you could summarize what you think the vibe and the intention were for him putting that out versus that out, what would be your best?
I don't know if it was an intentional, like, look, guys, I'm more than just the funny hip hop, like, random lyrics guy. Like, I can actually write, like, heartfelt songs while still having that, creative edge. And I'm not going to say he didn't pull it off. I'm just saying, for me personally, I prefer the more, like, edgy side of Beck. Not necessarily, like, the noisy side like we got super early on, but the more like I'm just having fun out here. I'm letting it all hang out.
Right.
We're having a good time. That's when I feel like, all right, now Beck's like in his pocket. He's finding his groove. Versus this, I'm not gonna say it feels forced, but it definitely feels like him making a conscious effort to be like, yeah, I'm not just that. I can do more.
So if this is what was the first one? Golden Feelings. If Golden Feelings is first and this is last, and he, there's no more music after this, and tomorrow you open a record store, and part of your inventory is his discography through these 5-6 albums. Mm-hmm. Where are you putting him?
That's a great question.
Rock.
If there's like an alternative section, then definitely that, because he's more rock than hip hop, but there wasn't a lot of rock that was so influenced by hip hop at the time. Like, this was before like nu metal had really become a thing. Like, Rage Against the Machine was around at this time, but that's as far really as like a hip hop and rock, not to mention like Run DMC and Aerosmith, stuff like that. But as far as like a pure like rock band, or in this case rock artist, integrating hip hop into like a prolonged career, I mean, Beck was really groundbreaking in that aspect.
Have you ever been in a record store where an artist's music is in multiple genres, multiple spots? Really?
I have, yeah.
Can you think of an example?
There's a band, I don't know if you listen, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
People keep trying to shove me down the rabbit hole. I'm like, I will. I swear to God, I will.
The longer you wait, the more impossible it is. They release like 2 albums a year on average. It's been up to 5 albums in a year before.
Have we talked about them on either of your previous?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so give me all the goods. What was your intro?
So my first album that, like, when I first discovered them, their next album right after that was Nonagon Infinity, which I think was their 10th album. And this was almost a decade ago. And they're up to, like, I don't know, 26 albums or something.
And when did they put their first one out?
Like 2011. Like, they are prolific. And the thing is, like, they haven't really released a bad album. Like, you'd think with that many albums, some of them are like, yeah, they could have done without doing that one. No, they've got some from good to incredible albums. And the thing is, some 2 albums, but in general, they like switch it up a lot. They have 2 thrash metal albums.
Nuh-uh.
They do, and they're both actually really good.
Have you been a person that enjoys metal
regular?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Metallica was one of my, and then from Metallica I grew to like Iron Maiden and
Nice.
Judas Priest and
Okay.
like that same era.
Okay. Oh, did you have an uncle that was maybe?
Yes,
okay.
My uncle was a huge Metallica fan, and I got into it through him. And then, into the 2000s, I got really like System of a Down is one of my favorite bands. Mastodon, I love.
Okay.
Just some, good. I'm not super into like the black metal and the death metal.
Sure.
Still haven't refined my palate quite that much, but as far as just regular old metal, I wouldn't call myself a metalhead, but I definitely enjoy.
Sounds like you've
done
good
amount of metal.
Yeah. Couple episodes ago, I had a cat named Swaggy Roaches.
I saw.
Oh, really? Where do you see stuff? Did you subscribe to the YouTube or?
Again, since I watched like whenever I was coming on here before, I would like watch.
It just feeds it to you.
So it just every time a new one comes out, it pops up in my recommendeds. Yeah.
Well, he is. So they are part of. He is part of a pro Kansas cannabis law reform Scooby-Doo themed band called Stony Doom, and it's like the lettering, the font looks just like on the show,
right?
And then their CD. I got it back here somewhere. Well, meddling kids.
That's funny. With the smoke clouds coming up.
Yeah, and they all, all of their names are, Scooby, Swaggy, Roach.
Mm-hmm.
So part of his list, and they're metal, and I was very fascinated. I have always been fascinated with the metal loving portion of the stoner community.
Oh yeah,
like
stoner metal is like a huge subgenre,
which just blows my mind because I tend to associate, like, if marijuana and music are gonna give me Bob Marley or something like nice,
Pink Floyd.
Yes. I mean, something nice, like, and chill.
Yeah.
Or I don't mind some thinking. Or didn't mind back in my smoking days, but a Mastodon record was on his list.
It was Crack the Sky, I think.
It was Sky with an E, and
it was his little sister, the guitarist's little sister. Was named Sky.
Yeah,
she took her own life.
Oh, damn.
When she was a teenager, and the same time that. I mean, this happened well before, but when they were recording that album, I think another band member, his like mother had just passed away, so the whole album was just very like grief centered and like a kind of a catharsis type of thing. But yeah, that's why it's called Y with an E.
Okay. I missed that, but really cool album for not the number one metal fan in the world, and the album art is like really, enchanting.
Their art is always on point. They have some really cool art.
Well,
and just the album was their most prog metal that they ever got. It was just like the Czar is on there. It's like in the Last Bear. There's like 2 13-minute songs on there. That's like metal bands weren't really, besides like Iron Maiden, who would have super literary epics,
right?
Like Rime of the Ancient Mariner,
right?
Alexander the Great, and stuff like that. But in general, metal bands didn't quite drag it out that long,
right?
And then you have
they have like suites or like verse,
exactly.
Like their album is a
concept album.
Yes,
like
and
parts.
Yeah.
My favorite Mastodon album, like we started with Beck and we just progressed to Mastodon.
Perfect. We did it right.
But Leviathan by Mastodon.
Okay.
Probably my favorite metal album. Period. It is just
incredible. So he had Alice in Chains, he had Mastodon, I forget who, but point being, he had equally enthusiastic feelings about, of course, each of the records on his list, but he definitely made it a point to say that Mastodon is my favorite band.
They are,
and he's seen them a handful of times, and I'm pretty sure he said that each show was phenomenal, and
I've heard they put on an
I was like, God
show.
damn, really? And so anyway,
they seem like super cool guys. Like just from interviews
right?
with them, they're all super down to earth. They've contributed music to like Adult Swim shows and like the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie. They did one of the songs for that.
So, but back to the Giz.
Yes,
so
that's how we got.
Introduction to them was
Nonagon Infinity. And then from there, I went back to their earlier stuff, and then I just kept up with albums as they were coming out from then on. And I think it was the year after Nonagon, or maybe 2 years after, they literally released 5 albums in 1 year, and they were all like pretty different. One was like almost a spoken word metal,
cool,
concept album about like society breaking down in the future. They had one that was Sketches of Brunswick East, it was called, with like this mellow jazz band. It was like a collaboration, and it was like super low key. One was microtonal. They were experimenting with microtonal music.
I don't even know what that is.
So like, how we have the 12 tones in our scale.
I knew there were tones. I didn't know there were 12 of them.
There's 12 of them.
Okay.
And you can't really get to the spaces in between the notes on like a piano, for example, where you have A, you have A sharp,
unless can you get there if you adjust the tuning?
Exactly.
Okay.
So they have like special guitars that have frets in certain places that can get you pitches between what normal pitches you'd get, and so it gives it like this really like Middle Eastern feel, like this very Eastern vibe, but still like an indie rock, alternative rock album. And they're just so creative, and they put out, like, apparently the past, like, few years that they've been touring, like, no two set lists are the same. They just switch it up every single night.
So, like, I don't know what this is back here. It's like 1997 or 1998. Like, that was the first time, I think. I mean, they've been around that long, right?
They've been around, yeah.
And somebody's like, that's the first time I heard them. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then not again for years. And then now they, any fish-related Facebook group that I'm in, like, there's always somebody being like, wearing some of their merch or talking up one of their records. And inevitably, numerous people will be like, I was at the show tonight. It was like my 40th time seeing them. Continue to be the best band out there and blowing my mind. I'm like, where did this fan base come from? And
just word of mouth.
And so I'm assuming that you've read a little bit about them.
Yes.
And so, like, in my small brain, a band that puts out records, typically you got, I think we definitely touched on it in our Tom Waits episode. Like there was a line in there that said, might have been Rain Dogs. Was the Rain Dogs the first one that had Keith Richards?
Yeah.
And whoever it was, and Mark Ribot, and it was like, when it was time to record, he would just play a version on an acoustic guitar, and then everybody would learn it as they're, kind of so,
it's like follow my lead type deal.
Yeah. So
like sheet music or anything.
So if you're in a band, probably in a lot of cases, I would guess there's a person that's kind of bringing skeleton versions of songs, and then the band fleshes it out, and okay, now it's a song, and then now we have 10, and here's a record. Or maybe multiple people are writing, and or maybe there's scenarios where everybody is just jamming and they come up with something. Do you know what their music writing tendency has been?
Mostly jam based. Seriously? There are a lot of riffs that you'll hear come up like on different albums. Like
albums
cool. Later, it's like a callback to this riff from
I
this
love
time,
it.
And some lyrics, cross over a lot. They're just a very there's a few albums they have that all followed like that indie rock, like psych rock formula.
Okay.
That's probably like what they're most known for.
Where should I start?
I think a good starting point would probably be I'm in Your Mind Fuzz.
I'm in Your Mind Fuzz.
I'm in Your Mind Fuzz.
Okay. So
that and Nonagon Infinity. I think Nonagon Infinity was also a great starting point.
You gotta spell that one for me.
Nonagon, and then Infinity.
Okay, 2 words.
Yeah. But then, like I said, they have 2 metal albums. They have like a psych, like a boogie almost album.
Cool.
They're coming out with an album in a few weeks that's like synth based, like more electronic. They're all over the place, and it's always like, I'm not gonna say it's always amazing, but it's always at least good.
Sure.
Like, they haven't come out with anything yet that I've been like, all right, guys, you could have done without that one. Like, it's all felt like, damn, these guys are still doing it.
Do you know? Are they going to the same spot to record every time they put out an album?
They're Australian, I think from Brisbane.
Oh, really?
But yeah, they have their own record label. Like,
okay.
I would say there's like 8 people in the band right now.
8?
They're a big old band.
Okay.
And they had a former member. They used to have 2 drummers, and I just have 1 drummer. But one of their former drummers is now just like the record label manager.
Oh, fun.
And so it's just like a whole little organization
That's
got
cool.
going on. But yeah, they all seem like super cool guys just from their interviews.
Sure.
And like I said, they're
do you
cranking out this much good music on a yearly basis.
What are some elements of cool guys that you've gotten from interviews, like sense of humor?
Definitely
nice.
They're just like the way, like they're all best friends, and you can tell immediately just from like watching them interact. They're just like riffing on each other and like finishing each other's sentences. And,
what about production from album to album? Do they use different folks? Do you know?
It's usually self-produced.
No way.
More often than not. Yeah.
Wow.
It's honestly ridiculous.
And
their touring schedule is like
huge.
They're just always living the music. Like,
I mean,
at all times.
they can't have families. I mean,
I think one of them, like the drummer that became he's like, hey, I have a son. I gotta take some time into myself.
What do you say? How do I look as a manager?
Exactly.
I mean, I can't even. I obviously North America is not the focal point of the world, but since that's where we are, and that's an 18-hour flight.
Yeah.
And are they touring many countries?
They usually do like a few spots per country.
Okay.
Like they're doing what are called marathon sets. Next year is what they're like trying to focus on. 3 nights in a row in one city for like 4 or 5 cities in a country. Like here they're doing one in Chicago, New York, LA, where they just like Friday, Saturday, Sunday of each week, they are there at the same venue doing a whole different set list each night.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, they are. I don't know how they do it, honestly.
That's crazy.
Absolutely insane.
So if you are all about them and you want to see them as much as you can, you're jumping on planes a lot.
Oh yeah.
Unless I guess you could go do 3 nights in Chicago and be like, that's it for me.
I got like 10% of their discography across these 3 nights together, but I'll take it.
Wow. And again, subreddits is what's keeping you informed about these guys.
And like I follow some music YouTubers that are usually pretty good about here's what I've listened to, here's what's coming up soon.
Any that come to mind that you want to shout out?
I mean, the big one's probably like Fantano. Most music reviewers / like wannabe critics online know who Fantano is. He's like the go-to YouTube music critic.
And is he playing music on his whatever his platform is?
Oh no, he doesn't play. He just talks about the album and like he just gives it a rating.
So I'm doing something right.
No, him. There's Brad Taste in Music. I think I mentioned him last time I was on here.
Okay.
Just like his whole thing is he just does a live stream like 2 or 3 times a week where people get on YouTube and you can pay him like per minute to play songs. Like he'll react to them and like everyone's talking to each other in the chat.
Yep.
And then you could pay him like a couple $100 and he'll do an album and like
right,
listen to a whole
right.
album.
I do remember that.
It's like track by track. And then those track by track albums, whenever someone recommends one, he'll like edit that and put that out as like its own video on YouTube. And he'll do like requests, like themed playlists or podcast episodes. Like people will submit like, what's the greatest love song of all time? And then he'll like go through people's suggestions. But he's charging like $10 a minute, and people are paying him like hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per stream. And all he's doing is just sitting there like talking to people, listening to music, giving his thoughts on it. I'm like, this dude's got it figured out.
Yeah,
this
man.
is amazing. That's
wow.
Yeah.
So, man, I lost my train of thought, but that made me curious.
Real quick, can I use the rest?
Oh yeah, do it. Man, I don't remember what it was, but there was something about that whole being paid to check stuff out. I don't know how he is able to get around copyright stuff.
Since it's a live stream, I guess he can get away. If it's not something like super, like he can never play like a full Kendrick Lamar song or something, or like a Taylor Swift song will get copyright like immediately. There'll be people like he'll start getting threats from YouTube saying, like he's had to say before, hey guys, we need to stop. I'm gonna end this live stream, open up a new one in a few minutes, but this one's getting like copyright struck by YouTube, so we gotta watch it. But then whenever he posts it, like edits it down for like YouTube and posting it on YouTube as like its own video, he'll put like no more than like a 2-second clip of the song. Yeah.
For real?
Yeah. Like very often, like while he's watching or while he's like listening to music, he'll like pause like to give his thoughts or like to tell chat to shut up or something.
Yeah.
And so like that usually works.
Yes.
But it's usually most of his streaming, like the eyes on him come from his live streams.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so I feel like there was some other point about King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is the correct band name, right?
Yes.
So they've got a manager, they've got their own spot there where they record. They're producing in-house, and then touring massively. They'll
do like a few months where they tour like non-stop, and then have a few months where they just record and release album after album after album, and then they go like and just flip-flop.
That's crazy. And like you would think that if it wasn't meant to be or built to last or fun, as fun as it can be for all of them, that they would have done something different. They would have changed the approach.
Yeah. No,
but
still working. They're doing the exact same thing they did when they started off, just keeping it fresh with every record.
And ultimately word of mouth.
Essentially,
right?
Yeah. They're not a very commercial band by any means. Like they're becoming more prominent like year after year. More people are hearing about them, but I still like they're far, far away from like landing a song on the Hot 100.
Of course, like that. Of course.
Like they're among the most well-known of underground bands.
Very fascinating. Yeah. And kudos to them. I'll get there one day, but it's
daunting.
That's the thing,
daunting.
Yeah.
I was lucky that they were only like 9 or 10 when I started. I was like, okay, this is manageable. And then there were 15 by the next year. I was like, I came in at the right time.
Dang. Have they talked about some of their influences?
I'm sure they have. You can definitely hear a lot of like just early psych rock.
Okay. I've always wanted to attach them somehow to Robert Fripp and King Crimson.
You could. There's a little bit in some of like the fact that they're very like loose, like with time signatures and with like they keep it like listenable. Everything that they haven't really done anything that's just super heady like a King Crimson record, but they're not making just your general like 4 on the floor little tiny like C major riff here. Like they're, like I said, they're doing microtonal stuff. They're doing straight up prog albums here and there.
Wow.
They're doing, like I said, metal albums. The first metal album they did, Infest the Rat's Nest, is what it's called. Just pure thrash metal, straight through. Fantastic album. The second one they did came out earlier this year. It's called a Petrodraconic Apocalypse. I definitely butchered that. But just a super, they love their long titles. Clearly, it's in the name.
Yeah.
But this one's more like prog metal, like changing time signatures, but also still very like heavy.
Yeah.
And it never sounds like we were talking before. It never sounds like a gimmick. Like it always sounds like they're taking their influences and like paying respect to them by doing something that's just as good. Honestly, I'd put their thrash metal albums up there with some of the heavy hitters of the genre. Yeah.
Well, a funny thing has happened since the first time we sat down together, and that's that I've had a few musicians on and a few live music venue folks on, and it's an interesting split, I guess, or a grouping of musicians in particular, where it's like we 1000% love what we do. We're like the best of friends, and we have a spot where we can record, a spot where we can practice. We put stuff out. We perform live, but we are by no means aiming for any form of commercial success. This is just artistic expression.
Right.
And we'll put stuff on Bandcamp, and we have merch, and we'd love if you bought it, but we're not. We all have jobs.
We'll get by.
Yeah. And so like I don't know how or how they wound up where they did, but it feels like they just dove in, and it was like either they did have jobs and just never slept in 20 years, or there was some portion of wealth that they started with.
Their first like 2 or 3 albums, like super lo-fi, like recorded on probably like an 8-track in their garage, and it was after like those started getting some recognition like around like music circles in like their local Australia area, and from there like they were given access to like more like, better technology, better equipment, and they just rolled with it and just kept upgrading and upgrading and upgrading to the point where literally 5 albums in a year, and they all sound like completely different to one another.
And they've got to be making a living.
Oh yeah,
doing this.
Yeah,
but I mean, were they always? And if they weren't, like, what was the point where they were like
it flipped on them?
Yeah. I mean, that would be fascinating.
I do think not like again, they're not a very well known band outside of like music, like underground music.
If you're making a living playing music, fuck it. If you're not well known, but sorry, it cut you off.
I think Nonagon Infinity is probably their most well known. I think that was like around the time I came on. That's like when they were at their peak, like at their, like you said, almost a turning point where they went from like super underground to, okay, this album like got a little more recognition than the ones before it, which is giving people like time to go back and look at their earlier stuff. And then I guess that thing was the very next year, if not 2 years later, where they released 5 albums in a row. And just the fact that they like announced like, hey, this year we are coming out with 5 albums. People that had never really listened to King Gizzard, they were like, they're doing what now? Oh, and they already have like almost a dozen albums already, and they're doing 5 more, and they're gonna keep pumping out more and more albums after this. Just like, again, not a gimmick, but it's definitely what they're known for.
And like their
prolificness.
Cover art is no slouch either, right?
They have some pretty good. I mean, sometimes it's pretty just generic. But in general, like they have some really like Infest the Rat's Nest is like this portal to hell / like throne looking thing.
Cool.
Petrodraconic Apocalypse is just like the head of a dragon with like a smokestack in the background.
Huh.
It's not always like the most inspired,
but stuff that's interesting to look at.
It's always going to catch your
eye. Yeah. Well, we were last on Mutations from 1998, and
back
then
to back.
Midnight Vultures 1 year later. Again, 11 tracks, 58 minutes. I am not certain that I could point to this and say I feel like there was a permanent pivot.
Oh, definitely not. If anything, it felt like a back towards the Odelay style after Mutations.
Okay.
Almost like too far of a course correction. Not a bad album by any means. It's just like his funkiest, probably his loosest album. Definitely his most like irreverent album. In general, I really like Midnight Vultures. There's a few songs that I'm like, too much, man. Like, you're having too much fun with this. I get it. I love you when you're at your most fun, at your most free. But at the same time, Deborah, I could go the rest of my life without listening to that song. Hollywood Freaks.
Solely because you've heard it a bunch of times?
Not even just the first time I heard it was listening to this.
Oh, no kidding!
I'd never heard Deborah before,
and you were like, "No, thank you, sir."
Not a big fan. Okay. And then I go on to see that it's one of his most popular songs.
Right?
I was like, "Why? This is not a good song." But like "Sex Laws," I love that song. "Get Real Paid" is one of his weirdest songs. It's like that super robotic, like auto-tuned voice, the little fluttering electronics in the background. Love that song. Like, there's some really good music here. "Sex Laws" is a great opener, I thought, but at the same time, it's just like I said, a little too much at points.
Sure. So you were a pretty big fan of Odelay, and then Mutations, you're like meh. And then Midnight Vultures, too much course correction.
I definitely like it more than Mutations. It's like it falls between the two. Odelay is still, I think, his best album. Again, maybe not my favorite, but I think his most like consistently great album. Midnight Vultures is him saying, "All right, yeah, Mutations was fun. Let's go back to having some real fun."
Interesting.
And then just did not pay any mind to anything else besides just let's have the most fun possible on this record.
So then what do you make of Sea Change? And this is just the back, I think, because it's got the trap. But 2002, 12 tracks, 52 minutes, kind of staying in that wheelhouse of number of tracks and total running time.
Yeah.
What was your takeaway on this one?
This one felt more like, it's almost like it went from Odelay down to Mutations, up to Midnight Vultures, then kind of back down to Sea Change. Like he's just trying to find a middle point, and just like going back and forth between them. I really enjoyed Sea Change for the most part. Probably about the same as Midnight Vultures. Even though it's a very different album.
Absolutely.
It's a lot more subdued. But unlike Mutations, it still has a little bit of that fun edge to it.
Yep.
There's certain songs on here that I was like, okay, this probably could have fit maybe not on Odelay, but on a more like an Odelay B-side, maybe. Not quite as experimental, not quite as fun, but still like more fun than Mutations.
Right.
Which was very much just a neutered Beck
for
the most part.
Well, I mean, I have had pockets where I've really enjoyed Odelay. Mutations, Midnight Vultures, I recognize, respect, enjoy in parts, but Sea Change I felt like the strongest push in the direction of I think I'll probably at least have a peek at everything he does moving forward,
right? Because
I feel like he's not that polished is the end, and I'm not talking production and sound, and not that polished is the end goal, but as a human, as a personality, as a musician, as an artist, like I think there is some value in saying, "Oh, this is who I am." And you know, if you're the kind of person that I'm a different me every time I record a record. Good for you. Like not everybody's built that way.
Right.
So it's cool if you are. But I really felt like he hit some kind of stride with this. You know, 3 years later, we get Wero with 13 tracks, 49 minutes. I don't want to taint anything that you're going to say, but so if that's where I am, I'm like, I'll check out. You've earned enough moxie for me to give a listen to whatever you put out moving forward, and then that's next. What do you think?
This is the beginning of my favorite stretch
of
Beck albums. This is...
You don't dare have a holy trinity, do you?
If anything, it's this and the two that follow
Okay.
If I have my order correctly in my mind. But this is like this is the album I think that I had listened to most of beforehand.
Really? Okay.
Because I knew E-Pro, I knew Girl, I knew what was the other one? Go It Alone is on here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those three I knew. Like I'd listened to those quite a bit before, and I really liked all those songs. And K on the Wear, honestly. And then to find them all on the same album, and for it to be just a great album front to back.
Yeah.
It feels like not quite as all over the place and like in your face as Odelay. This is more like I'm going to take what I learned from the last few albums, like Sea Change and Mutations, like that super tight structure, but still with the like hip hop grooves and the like more sampling than he's used the past few albums. Like we're going back into like that heavy sampling feel. And it's just, super fun album. Honestly, I had this thought every time I listened to this album. Black Tambourine is literally just an E-Pro B-side. It's got the exact same flow. It's the same like cadence that he uses. It's like he had so much fun writing E-Pro. He's like, I'm going to use that for one more song on this same album, and no one's going to say anything. Broken Drum, I think, is a beautiful song. Go It Alone again is great. But yeah, those first three, from E-Pro to K on the Wero to Girl, and honestly to Missing, which is a very good, like he belts out in that song.
Yeah.
Like he's got good pipes. And this is something that I also thought of that I'd kind of noticed on the earlier albums when he was like actually trying to sing and not just, having a flow as he talks. But on this album, and specifically that song Missing, there's a little bit of like a grunge twang, almost like a Chris Cornell, Scott Weiland type voice.
Cool.
Just like the like really straining his lip. Not an Eddie Vedder from the chin singing.
Right.
But more like I said, Scott Weiland, Chris Cornell, like really hearty, really like pushing his voice to its limits. Like he doesn't have as big a range as like Chris Cornell, but he has that same like almost like intonation as he's singing, that same tone. And again, this is a great album front to back. A few songs again that I could live without. Hell Yes, I didn't love. It's just a little too just a little too weird for me. And again, Black Tambourine, it's fine, but it sounds too close to E-Pro in my opinion. That just like, why do we have this again? But again, front to back, pound for pound, I'd put this up against Odelay. I probably prefer this personally to Odelay.
Cool, man.
Just for like consistency's sake. But again, this is the beginning of peak Beck, in my opinion.
Yeah. I feel like Odelay is like, wow, man, that, just kind of mind-blowing. Like, that dude's still around? And then you're like, oh shit, he's been making records
like nonstop.
And then we get to this and it's like, mad respect, dude. Like you have I don't know if you've had any adversity. I think you wake up and go to bed with adversity if you're an artist. But I mean, kudos for like still being in the game and kill a record. And now I'm gonna have to fucking poke around at the rest of the shit.
To still be putting out like hits, like charting singles. Like Girl was a Billboard Hot 100 charting single. E-Pro maybe was, but Girl I know was, and it's like we're almost a decade removed at this point from Loser, from
right.
Not quite as far removed, but like from Odelay and like Where It's At and Devil's Haircut and songs like that. And it's like, damn, he's still got it.
Yeah,
He's still able to crank out some hits.
Well, I have, and I'm kidding, but I'm also serious. And when I say that, I have a relationship with the record, he would follow that up with 1 year later, The Information. 2006, 15 tracks, 61 minutes. I think that I have a relationship with that record that is rooted in a little bit of trauma. In that, in 2004, when I got accepted to grad school, I was living with a buddy, and I was like, I gotta live by myself. There's no way I can work and try to get a master's and focus if I'm living with somebody else and blah, blah, blah. So I move into this home that was split vertically. So, like, if you come up on the front porch, there's 2 front doors, and it was 6127, and then my place was 6127 and a half. And it was literally like the staircase of that home, but no, that's not true. This staircase was, it wasn't the primary. But anyway, you go up, and then it's, the spot, and there's a closet in the place downstairs where you open that closet, and it's the staircase up to but they had just, covered it with floor.
Right.
So we share a yard, we share a basement where the laundry facility is. And so I move in, and there is a guy who's young, like in his 20s, mid to late 20s, and he lives there with his mom. And his mom is an over-the-road truck driver, so she's gone 3 weeks out of the month. And one of the very first things he tells me is that he smokes weed all day and all night, but he's allergic to it. So he's got some kind of medication that he takes to counter the symptoms.
Interesting.
And beside that,
dedicated pothead.
Dedicated for sure. Beside that, I don't know that he did anything else with it. Like, he didn't have so there was, his mom, for whatever reason, I don't know if she was changing jobs, but they're moving. And this family from North Dakota rents the place. And it's a gal with her 2 kids, and the oldest is like a 12, 13-year-old autistic boy, and then a daughter, and the mom's boyfriend, and whatever conglomeration of pets that they have. And they literally roll up with their truck and their U-Haul and all their belongings, and to move in. And mom is just getting back from being gone, and he was supposed to pack the whole house and hadn't done anything.
Right.
So now these people are like, this is
our house.
Yeah.
Now.
And they're like, well, and so they're like hustling to get stuff out, and they're moving stuff in, and it was insane. Everything was audible about, in my place. And the boy would run back and forth and like jump. He'd like throw himself into the wall, and he had like token phrases that he would holler. It was like virtually impossible to concentrate and study there. And then I swear to God that beef was part of their dinner every night around dinner. I could smell beef being cooked. And I don't know how what was happening, but they started like compiling their trash in our backyard, and it was like, barrels full of maggots. I discovered it. I was cutting the grass and like, fuck, what is? And then I was like, oh my God! And so I re-parceled it up in the dark, because I didn't want them to think I was being a creep going through their trash. But I was like, this can't be here anymore, and tomorrow's trash. So I got it all out. And I came home, and they had like done a big, huge chalk drawing saying thank you on our shared porch. I was like, please don't do that again. Yeah, and they did like a second, and it got to the point where he was like taking trash in his truck to go to his construction site. I was like, first of all, where is this trash coming from? Second of all, just fucking put it out on trash night.
Right.
Like, I mean, and it was, and then they like adopted a puppy and it had fleas. And so when I would go down to do laundry, I would come back up with like 40 fleas on each sock. It was brutal. And I don't remember what happened, but they moved out. And then there was a couple of students living there, and they were fine, whatever. We partied a little bit together, but they were gone pretty quickly. And then a dude moved in by himself. His name was Mark Huddleston. And like the first night he was there, my room, which didn't even have a door, is at the back of the place, and I'm laying there in bed, and it's immediately can tell that he's directly below me smoking cigarettes. And I was like, I kind of toss and turn. And then I was like, actually, that's
not okay.
No. And so, and it was like a tiny little screened in porch, and he just stepped out, but my bed is right above. So I was like, dude, and I would see him, he was like managing a Kinko's, and very, very sharp, very nice, also very sad from time to time. And he had a sibling in town who was married, so he would kind of go to the occasional family thing, but he like was very much alone, and it was like palpable. And so we would hang sometimes, talk about whatever, and then I think he would take those deposits of our relationship and then be like, all right, now it's okay for me to smoke. I can smoke. It's like every time I was like, dude, and I would that texting is not alive and breathing as a thing now. And eventually it got to the point where I had to like reach out to the landlord, because I was like, seriously, man, like you gotta just go out on the front porch or out in the backyard. I know you don't want to put your shoes on or whatever. Anyway, point of the story is, the information comes out like right around the time that he moves in, and I don't know if he had just a boombox and that CD alone, but I swear to God, for like 9 months, if he was home, that was on and it was loud. So a handful of years went by before I, owned it on my own, and I think I actually did end up buying the CD, but it's just like there's not a portion of a song that I don't know like the back of my own hand.
Memorized.
And it's a weird feeling to have that experience with that record, because I think it's a pretty amazing record.
It's a great album.
Like,
might be my favorite Beck album, period.
I mean, just cell phones
that
dead,
the chameleon interpolation.
Lost in, and then there's just some, I won't even say songs. There's just like passages of songs that are like, whoa, what was that?
Go back to that.
Yeah. Anyway, what about you for this one?
Just, again, from the very beginning, elevator music, fantastic opener. Think I'm in Love is in the front running for like one of my favorite Beck songs.
To say. That's so who doesn't feel that way about Love?
It is, yeah. It's just a very like it's like a kid, like a very I'm gonna say immature, but like young, naive perspective. Just like,
if
she doesn't really notice when I'm around, and it makes me kind of nervous to say so, like you said, and stuff like that. It's like a very, like, it doesn't sound like it's being written by a man in his 30s or 40s or however old he was at this point. Like,
right.
It sounds like confessions from a teenage diary. Like,
right. So let me ask you this. Do you believe that a heterosexual man and a heterosexual woman can have a long-term successful platonic relationship?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't. I mean, it's not quite that cut and dry. But where I'm going with this is if you have been the male, let's say, for example's sake, in that kind of relationship, and then one day you say, hey,
I got feelings for you.
And I've had him forever. I've just always been kept him bottled. You can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. Like,
no.
That relationship is forever changed in probably one of two ways.
Yeah.
You know, so I think sometimes an artist just says a funny little line about the human experience. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, that's...
I get that.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. Strange Apparition and Soldier Jane are great. Nausea is a great song. New Round is a very, like, same, just very calm, like, little breather moment, but still almost like a Radiohead vibe. Mm-hmm. Like, it's quiet, but it's still bustling, and there's little flurries of electronics in the background, some vocal manipulation that like all just comes together, and you're like, what is going on right now? This is a lot, but it's all
thoughtful,
like it's
mindful,
all fitting together so perfectly that you don't really notice all the moving parts going on there.
It's almost like this can't all have been intentional. Some of this you lucked into, but I'm sort of teasing. He probably was mindful about it, but there's so many weird little oddities that work well with whatever is around them. Anyway.
And then not a huge fan of the last, like the Horrible Fanfare Landslide Exoskeleton, that little triple suite. It's just, I don't know. I think Motorcade, the Information movie theme, that's a pretty good, strong run of songs to end it on. And then that comes in, and it's like, okay, I get it. It's a little, I guess, credits roll moment.
Yes, absolutely.
Like little pieces from previous songs, like that little chameleon riff comes back again.
Which, and I mean, this is, so I guess by this time I've had a cell phone for 5 or 6 years. But just, and I know we hear it 1,000 times on the record, but cell phone's dead, lost in the desert, and it's like,
it's over for you.
It is. It totally is. And how quickly we didn't need this thing for all of eternity until now. And now if we don't have it,
can't live without it. Yeah.
Well, so 2 years later, 10 tracks, 53 minutes, Modern Guilt.
This is a very concise album.
This, The Information was the first of 3. Where you thought this is his best run? Okay. Sorry.
The Information, Modern Guilt. Okay. Modern Guilt, fantastic album as well. I'd never heard Gamma Ray. Also, I wasn't surprised to learn that that's one of his biggest songs. Like, as soon as I heard it, I was like, yeah, that's a single. That's 100%. That is this album's single. Right. I get it. But no, there's some really good songs on here that sound nothing like what he's ever done before. And I think specifically of Walls. Which the moment I heard that, I was like, this is Beck? This sounds incredible. It's like that violin going back and forth all over the song. It's just like the drums, that rhythm, Profanity Pages, or Profanity Prayers, fantastic song. The title track, Modern Guilt, is so good. It's got like that old school, like vaudeville vibe almost. Just like the tack piano. Volcano, great closer. It's just, I think, like, some songs on here kind of felt like they could have fit on other albums.
Yeah.
Some sound like they're just completely out of nowhere. And it's just a very good, I think, snapshot of all that Beck could offer in this, like, later era.
Yeah.
Not as, like, in your face as the earlier stuff, but still, like, enough experimentation, like, that you could definitely be still surprised that he's putting out songs like Walls and I think it's Soul of a Man that's got, like, that really, like, crunchy guitar riff.
I think so.
Great album.
So if we can all with relative ease agree to the definition of guilt, what is modern guilt?
It's a great question. We're getting philosophical.
I mean, maybe it's that whole thing we were just talking about where it's like, for all of human existence, we didn't need a cell phone, and now we can't live without. Like,
I think it does definitely have something to do with, like, the fact that we're all a lot more aware of the world at large. I think the world's gotten a lot smaller in a sense, in that for example, in colonial times, you'd have no idea what was going on the one town
zip code over. Yeah.
This your world.
They've
was
been killing folks over there for decades. Holy
like,
shit!
You have 1, maybe 2 square miles around you, and that is all you really know. Versus now, you can pull out your phone and see, drone strikes in Israel and kids going hungry in Ethiopia, and it's like, wow, that's not a whole world away anymore. It's literally at your fingertips.
And here's full look into my sort of level of unawareness, but I did see here in the last day or so, folks saying stand with Israel, and maybe even Barack Obama had a tweet. Like,
there's been a lot going on.
Is that weird?
There, yeah.
Drone strikes? Is that
so? Without getting too into the weeds, because obviously it's a centuries-long political conflict.
Right.
But it's, Hamas, which is the provincial government of Palestine. Mm-hmm. They're basically a terrorist organization parading as a government. They took their decades of frustrations and hostilities inflicted on them by the Israeli military and just unleashed, attacks upon attacks on Israel, and now it's getting to the point where Israel,
fatalities are happening.
Oh yeah, on both sides. There's Israel's mounting a counterattack, so it's starting to get
right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's possible to support the Palestinian people while also saying, hey, let's not drone strike anybody. Maybe that's not the way to do things. And the sad part is that it's only going to get worse. Israel is kind of, they just can outman the Palestinians 100 to 1. It's not really a matter of they're not on equal footing here.
So why would they do that? They let their frustrations bottle over, and
essentially,
now there's no takebacks.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, I'm not a political scientist or anything.
This
is just what I've been informed. And making my own conclusions from that, but really,
but that's a really good example. This is the corner of the world that you live in. You have no idea, and then you find there's a town over there, and then you find out there's an ocean, and then on the other side of it,
there's even more.
They've
towns.
been murdering each other for centuries over religion. It's not quite that cut and dry, I don't think, but
over land, over glory, over everything. Yeah. And then, I think, like you said, when it comes back to modern guilt, it's kind of accepting that, that's kind of what humans have always been. Whether we've really paid attention to it or not, there's always been that, maybe not armed conflict, but there's always been that tension between us. And it's gotten a lot more prevalent now that we can all see what everyone else is thinking at all times.
Yeah.
Before sadly. It used to be oh, hey, that's my coworker. I can know about him at work and not have to deal about what I know about him outside of work.
Yeah.
But now, when he's posting, Confederate flags on his Instagram, you're I wish we could have just kept it to a professional relationship, because now I'm gonna think of you much differently going forward.
Wild. Well, so, gosh, do I have this correctly that Modern Guilt was 2008, and then 6 years later, Morning Phase?
How long it was for Morning Phase?
13 tracks, 47 minutes. I read somewhere. I love,
It's really
unfortunately, his face is on. I don't know if it's on his record, his cover art too much.
You see a lot of Beck.
You do. This I really like this.
It's
one.
A nice cover. I really like it.
And I read somewhere that this. I can't say if it was intentional or not, but I read somewhere that this was sort of viewed as a sequel to Sea Change.
I can definitely.
And I can't associate the two at that point. But we are out of your top three.
Age, yeah.
So this is a drop for you.
Oh, this is a pretty sizable drop.
Okay.
It's not a bad album. I just really love the three albums that came before this. They were peak Beck, and I knew it wasn't going to stay that good forever.
Yeah.
And then I kind of expected it to tone down after Modern Guilt, because Modern Guilt kind of did feel like here's all the ideas I've had for the past several years, just putting them on this album. And then this was much more of okay, I'm taking a step back. Just a guitar, a couple effects here and there. It works for the most part. I enjoy the album. It's just, tough act to follow up with these three.
Fair.
compared to what follows, this is gold.
Oh,
this is incredible.
Seriously,
I do not like the albums that we have yet to talk about, but this, like, Don't Let It Go, I think is a fantastic song. Phase is really good. Turn Away, like, not a big fan of Hard as a Drum. There's some really good songs on here. It's just, as a whole, it feels very toned down, which is obviously nothing new to Beck, like Mutations and Sea Change. But this feels a lot more like consciously, I am not doing any of that other stuff that I've been known for. I'm just a songwriter. I'm a singer-songwriter, and that is it on this album. And it works, just not my favorite flavor of
Interesting.
Beck. Yeah.
Okay. So if Morning Phase is a drop off from Modern Guilt, then Colors of 2017, not a fan.
Not a fan.
Not at all?
I'll say this, almost exclusively because of Wow. Wow is one of the worst songs I've ever listened to in my life. I could not stomach this song.
Okay.
The first time I heard it a few weeks ago, I tried listening to it again a few days ago. It does not sit with me.
Okay.
I tried again earlier today, hate it even more.
Just that track.
That track in particular.
Okay.
There's maybe 2 or 3 tracks over here overall that I'd say I enjoy. I'm So Free, I think, is a pretty good song. Seventh Heaven is okay. It just feels so, like, I get he was being tongue-in-cheek, but it just feels so of the time and, like, dated at this point, and, like, so, I don't know, embroiled in all those annoying pop cliches of the time, like the group vocals and the yeahs and just, like, the really upbeat, like, we're never gonna die mentality, and I don't know. It's just a very...
So you didn't, at any point, listening to this record, let's pretend for the sake of this portion that Wow is not on this album. At any point, you never went, wow, this is really pretty.
I'm trying to think. Not really.
Okay.
There were points where I was like, okay, this is fun. I kind of get what you're going for.
Cool.
This is cool. But it really felt like Beck trying his hardest not to be Beck at points. And
backfire.
Very much a backfire, in my opinion. Again, not a terrible album. It was listenable.
Okay,
I'll give it that.
Okay.
I would listen to this over Stereopathic, Soul Manure.
Agreed.
But not by much, because that album was at least, like, taking risks, and like there was like a rawness and an earnestness.
Everybody is eager to hand out their edgy points.
Exactly. Yeah. With this, it's very much like, okay, here's what everyone else is doing. I'm just gonna do my own version of that, except he's too talented for an album like this.
Okay,
like,
that's fair.
Morning Phase, I didn't love it, mostly because, like, I just don't like that flavor of Beck.
Yeah.
This is more my flavor of Beck, and I hate it much more than Morning Phase, because it just feels so, like, disauthentic. Like, very.
I mean, I see it. I see it. Well, gosh, I'm terrified.
You're a fan.
I don't, I think maybe I came to these last 3 with perhaps an inflated sense of appreciation.
Fair.
And so maybe that means I got in the chair and put these on without, like, my music critic thinking brain.
Fair, yeah.
And so, like, whatever was going to come out, I was going to be like, nice work, buddy, which... So I'm very curious. I'm assuming that a portion of this for me with Hyperspace, which is his last in 2019, I think maybe there's something in the pipes right now.
I've heard, talks of perhaps a new one.
Hyperspace, 11 tracks, 39 minutes, collaborative project with Pharrell Williams. It is, and again, maybe it's because it's the newest, and so I have the smallest relationship with it, but it's like every record of his prior to this, I have had some form of opinion on, and I don't know what to do with this one. Like, I think there are quality, for me as somebody that liked Colors somewhat. Mm-hmm. Like there are some similar qualities.
Oh, it's similar. It is very similar.
Let it all out.
It is the slightest of steps up, I think, from Colors. There are, again, some songs that I enjoyed. Saw Lightning is pretty good. Mm-hmm. See Through is all right. I enjoyed Stratosphere. But, again, like the Pharrell production, it feels like Pharrell production.
Yep. Which it's
not a bad thing. I enjoy Pharrell as a producer.
Had some other folks produce a track here and there or feature.
Oh, he's part of the Neptunes. Like he's one of the like hip hop producers of the past few decades is Pharrell.
Well, I meant back on
I thought we were talking
on previous records.
Yeah, he's dabbled with
I didn't
Modern Guilt, I think was produced by Danger Mouse.
Yes, and somebody else was in the mix.
And there's been a few where he's collaborated.
And I didn't omit those intentionally, but it felt like it almost wanted to be known that this was who was.
Yeah,
and it was like, I can see.
This is post Happy Pharrell, post Get Lucky Pharrell,
right?
When he went from being like an underground, like a mainstream producer, but not as like visible and not as like well known,
right?
And then Get Lucky came out and Happy came out, and it's Pharrell. Yeah. Everyone knows Pharrell now. It's fucking Pharrell.
Yeah.
But yeah, for this album, again, I'm not a huge fan, but it's better than Colors, and there are like redeeming moments on it. There's no wow on here, which automatically makes it at least 10 times better.
Right.
But overall, good-ish improvement over Colors. I'd still put these two pretty firmly at the bottom of my Beck list. Like Stereopathic Soul Manure, again, at least it was raw and
taking
exciting.
chances.
Like there was potential there.
Yeah.
This is a man who's already seen out his potential and gone, I don't care. I'm just gonna do whatever I want now. And he's having fun. It's not like the end of the world.
Right.
It's not like he's completely sold out and is just making the absolute most garbage music, except for WoW. But there's at least some stuff from those early albums that you could like see where it was going in the future. With these, I really hope there is no more of this going forward.
I hope you're listening, Beck. I mean,
this is for you.
Yeah.
This is
so
a very disappointing end to his discography so far. Yeah.
Now that those are all in a pile together, what do you make of this dude?
Like I said at the beginning, I've got very differing opinions. As far as the human being, Beck, I don't know him well enough to judge him on that. I know that he's a former Scientologist, and I respect him for... I don't know, he's pretty private about his personal life. I respect him. If it was his choice, if he or whatever went on there, I respect him for no longer being a Scientologist. And he seems...
Was there some kernel of controversy about that departure, or did he at one point say something that later didn't wind up seeming true? Or
I have no idea how he left. I just know that
was he born?
He was born and raised Scientologist. Okay. And at some point later after that, he was no longer a Scientologist.
Okay.
So I respect him for that.
Yeah.
And again, I have no reason to hate the guy personally, but his musically, is very divisive. There is, again, some absolutely amazing songs, some really good to great albums, but at no point or at very few points was I like, oh my God, this is good. Like, this is amazing. There were a few tracks that did that for me, but there was also enough fluff in between.
Okay. That's
enough
fair.
Like,
I think
insubstantial.
If I can take the information as a whole and loser and remove them, and I'm just doing that because it's way too familiar.
Right.
And then so everything else is left. I would say there's at least double digit. I'll say there's at least 10 songs that I love.
That's a good amount.
And maybe more. maybe it's 15, but seldom am I enamored by everything that those tracks are surrounded by.
Right.
But I think I'm like protective. Like I don't want to have to defend that love. It's a weird.
No, I get that.
I think he's an interesting, weird artist.
Oh yeah, that is definitely true.
So, if you're teaching a college 101 class about him, what are some things someone might see on your syllabus?
Damn, that's a good question.
And maybe you're talking about music as a whole, or maybe the whole thing is, it all has to tie back to him. But I mean, what would some key points in the
honestly,
course?
yeah, like honestly, the fact that he, like I said earlier, was one of the first like more mainstream people to incorporate hip hop influences. You would need like at least a few weeks on like the development of hip hop,
okay,
and how that eventually led to this scrawny little white guy interpolating hip hop samples and like rapping essentially in some of his songs. You would need his folk background. It feels like a lot of the first few weeks of the course would be like not so much about Beck, but like all the different pieces that he eventually borrowed from.
Okay.
I think that's what makes him most interesting. It's not like his talent, which is undeniable. It's his like knowledge of music as an art form and its evolution. And he's like, okay, I'm going to borrow these pieces from here and these pieces from there, and then have the wherewithal to know how to connect them into something that will become as big as Where It's At or as Loser.
Right.
Because a lesser artist would have tried something like that, and it would have been like a monumental catastrophe.
Right.
Like he'd be laughed out of the room, and it would still be a meme to this day. But with Beck, like, it's enough. Like, there's enough talent and earnestness behind it that you're like, oh wow, this dude actually knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I can get behind it.
I hope whoever would have been the person that created that meme would have had some modern guilt after it got out.
Contributing to
right. That. So, biggest takeaway from 1993 to 2019, discography-wise?
Super talented guy that doesn't always follow through on that talent, which I'm sure is by design. You don't have to put out the most groundbreaking,
right,
envelope-pushing music at all times. But it's also annoying to like have such great songs, like you said earlier, and then a song like Deborah or a song like Wow that you're just like, why did you need to do that?
Yeah.
Like, I get what you were going for. You're just trying to have fun and
right,
like go with it, but it just doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
Like the music, it's still about the music at the end of the day. You can have all the fun you want, but you still got to be making good music.
Yeah. Fair. So obviously nobody knows best guess for number of studio albums that he puts out moving forward. Is it 3? Is it 20? I mean,
I think we're past his days of like I said, it was like a 6-year break between Modern Guilt and Morning Phase.
Yeah.
If another album comes out in the like next year, that'll have been 4 or 5 years since since Hyperspace. I think he's at the point where like his discography is legendary enough as is. Like people know Beck, people aren't gonna be like.
But do you think he, let's just to keep it easy, Bob Dylan just continued to put out music, and like he's maybe gonna die doing that,
I could see that definitely it's gonna be several years between each because he's getting older. He's not really trying to have that same like style that he did back then, but I do think that he's got at least 2 albums.
Okay.
3 might be pushing it. I don't think he's got more than 3 personally. But I think he's still definitely got enough creative juices to pump out something at least moderately listenable. Again, these last 2 albums, I did not enjoy them, but they were still, listenable.
Sure. Sure.
Like, there was still some creativity behind it.
Yes.
Like, there was a driving force.
Are you glad you did this? As far as the investment to listen to it all.
Honestly, yeah, I wouldn't have probably done anywhere near this deep of a dive into Beck on my own.
Okay.
And, I'm always, not everything you listen to is going to be gold.
Right.
I enjoyed, going through discography because now I
some
can
of it's
say.
Some of it's going to be mellow gold, man.
And some of it, I can look back and say, I learned more about Beck and, by extension, a little more about, music as a whole. He fits pretty snugly into that, late 90s, early 2000s kind of irreverent hip-hop, electronic-infused alternative rock. And he's probably, the most visible face of that.
Yeah.
And so, I'd say, yeah, he's a very integral point.
Interesting.
Integral figure in the history of alternative music.
Yeah.
That being said, I still wouldn't count him as one of my favorite artists. So I can admire what he did and still say, yeah, he had some pretty big duds in there at the same time.
So you still got that record store and you still are keeping each of his records in stock. Are you finding stuff in different genres, or is he in?
I think it's all pretty firmly in the if there's an alternative section, a devoted alternative section. I mean, if it's my store, yeah, there's an alternative section. Okay. He's definitely in there. All his stuff is
all
in
his stuff.
There. One Foot in the Grave, you could maybe put in the folk section. The Wow as a song is just pure trap, and it's nothing against trap. There is some good trap music out there. Wow is not one of those songs.
What is trap?
It's a style of rap. It's the really pronounced hi hats and more down key.
Okay,
vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
But I definitely, that song is his take on oh, trap's cool. Let me do a trap song. Backfired horrendously. But besides that, most of his stuff is rock at its core, at least, with hip hop thrown in, or more folky stuff on Morning Phase and Sea Change, and it's still he is a rock artist at his core, a very knowledgeable and influenced rock artist, but a rock artist nonetheless.
Right. So if somebody's listening to this and it finds themselves in the position that you were in prior to this, in that you've heard the singles or a good portion of the singles, but you've had curiosity to check out a record, but never been that push to make you do it. What's the go-to that someone should start with?
Honestly, probably Odelay.
Odelay.
I think that's the best sampling of him at his peak.
Okay.
Right after that, probably either The Information or Wero. Modern Guilt, I love it as much as those other two. It's definitely a little more of a Beck fan album. It's not as immediately attractive as some other albums, but if you've listened to everything he's put out before then and worked your way up to Modern Guilt, then you're okay, yeah, this is a really good album. This is very unlike the rest of his discography, but not in a way that's super indicative of the rest of his discography.
Sure.
Whereas Odelay, he still kept those that same spirit throughout most of his career. And then you have Wero and The Information, which are kind of that same spirit, but a little more toned down, more tight, like I said before, more structured.
Sure.
Not as many, just random ideas thrown in. I keep going back to it, but where it's at has 20 different things going on in a 5-second span. It's got a sax solo and then some random voice in the background saying, let's make this a 2-horse town. And then, it's random stuff like that. That stuff didn't really stick through the rest of his discography.
No.
Which kind of makes Odelay a very singular experience.
Interesting.
But at the same time, it's him at his peak, and it's
yes,
if you enjoy this, there will be stuff you enjoy on other albums.
Right. So who is somebody that, whether it's the last month or the last 6 months, what's a piece of music you've been, or an artist that you've been obsessing over that is maybe it's a new discovery as an artist for you, or maybe it's a new release by somebody you already kind of what has been playing for you, since summer or spring?
Let's see. This year, there's been quite a few good releases over the past few months.
Not necessarily new
music,
but just what have you been into?
I've gone to quite a few concerts over the past few months. So the bands I've seen, I've gone like.
Who have you seen?
I saw LCD Sound System.
Okay.
Earlier, I saw in Chicago with my sister.
Oh, just the two of you?
Uh-huh.
How was that show?
Phenomenal. Idols opened for them.
Okay.
It was one of the best shows.
Wow. What was the venue?
It was some park. It was like a little mini festival they were doing.
Well attended?
It was a sizable crowd,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Enough room that I could spread out. It wasn't like a Lollapalooza.
Sure.
But no, it was a sizable crowd. I don't know if some of them hadn't heard of LCD Sound System or didn't know what to expect, but the first few songs, the crowd wasn't super into it. And I was like, you guys are watching legends right now. Like, let's show some fucking respect. But by like the fourth or fifth song, like people were like, okay, yeah, I'm into it.
Cool.
And then my sister and I the whole time were just back there.
She's a big fan too.
Oh yeah,
nice.
Collectively, like they're our favorite band, like our biggest.
What's the age split?
4 years,
and
she's 4 years younger than me.
She's 4 years younger. Right. Okay, so you saw them in Chicago.
I saw them. I saw Death Grips here a few months ago. I saw Ween. Here. They were at Grinders. That was a fantastic show.
I heard that it was a really great show.
Absolutely killed it. I love Ween.
Wow.
They're a great band, and that show was just
sort of
solidified my love for them.
Not a direct comparison, but sort of cut from the same cloth as King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard.
Oh yeah,
right. Similar fan base.
Very devoted fan base, and just super all over the place.
Right. Right.
From song to song to song, you'll get like a mellow ballad, and then like a thrashing punk track, and then you'll get like a tongue in cheek little happy electronic. Ween was amazing.
Okay.
I loved them. I saw Queens of the Stone Age here.
At Starlight.
Yes.
And also heard that they put on a good show.
That was a fantastic
and
show.
Somebody was saying the light show, the sound,
everything.
the whole
his interaction with the crowd. Josh Homme had everyone in the palm of his hands. It was amazing. If my sources are correct, that was the first encore they've done this whole tour that they've been on this year. They haven't done a single encore, or they've done we'll leave the stage for a minute and then come back. But here at Starlight, they left for a good 5 minutes, and everyone was just still losing their minds. Or whatever.
Nice.
And they came out and did a full
real
3-song,
real
3-song encore.
Cool.
That was fantastic. I feel like there's one. I saw Black Country New Road. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're pretty new.
I have heard of that name, but
they are very good. Another band that my sister and I both love. They were playing in Lawrence at the Granada.
Oh, fun!
And that was also an amazing show. There was one drunk asshole next to me that kept talking between songs, and I was like, "I'm not here to see you, man. I'm here to see the band."
Talking to you?
No, just to everyone.
Okay.
At one point in between songs, one of the band members was talking about something, and the guy goes, "Let's talk more rock," and I was like, "Shut the fuck up,
God.
man. No one cares about what you have to say right now." Still fantastic show. They were lovely. It was you've seen the Granada. It's a pretty small venue, and they're a 6-piece, indie would be the closest, I guess you could call it.
Sure.
Post rock, chamber rock, indie.
Yeah.
It was loud. It's just 6 people just going nuts on their instruments.
Okay.
They're very their songs start off kind of slow, more, and then they just build and build to where by the end of it it's just chaos all over the place. But yeah, that was a fantastic show. Yeah, it's been a pretty good year.
So those are some shows that you've seen, but at home, on the drive, wherever. Who?
Not to Beck the past few months.
No, I know, but outside of that, who have you been listening to, and what has really been, doing it for you?
Let's see. What have I been listening to? I just pull up my Spotify and see my recently played. System of a Down.
Okay.
They're one of my favorite bands. I come back to them once or twice a year.
That's always fun to do.
Let's see, what else have I got in here? There's lots of Beck. Most of my Spotify is Beck. Some Captain Beefheart.
Oh, wow.
Clear Spot by Captain Beefheart is one of my favorite albums of all time. Marty Robbins in here as well. Lots of Radiohead. I went through another big Radiohead phase
what do you think pushed you in that direction?
I know it's just been like a very up and down year, and Radiohead's a very, they've got mostly moody songs, but they've got like a good variety.
Sure.
Like if you're like down in the dumps, they've got music for that. If you're like trying to get out of being down in the dumps, they've got music for that too. And they've always been one of my favorites. They're another band that I revisit a lot. I saw Vampire Weekend came up on there. I love Vampire Weekend. Same thing with them. They like I'll hear one song by them, and then I'll just all right. That's all I'm listening to for the next few weeks. I'm going back through a discography. Like I know all their albums. Just a little bit of everything.
Cool.
Arm & Hammer and JPEG Mafia with Danny Brown have released some really good hip hop albums this year.
Danny Brown is in that's now part of Your Mom's House.
Yeah.
Okay, the Danny Brown Show. Drops on Tuesdays, I think. I did hear somebody say probably on a clip of his that he had just put something out, but he's been putting out stuff.
Oh, he's been rapping for like well over a decade now,
right? Yeah. But he's put out a fair amount of stuff too, right?
He's not super. He's got maybe like 5 albums, I think 5 or 6 albums, which is still a good amount. Some of them are absolute classics. Then he released a collaborative album with JPEG Mafia earlier this year, which is one of the most insane hip hop records I think I've ever listened to.
Really? In a good way?
In a good way, yes.
Okay.
It's a very chaotic record. Okay. Like if you ever, I don't know if you ever listened to JPEG Mafia.
No, I can't get over how intriguing that name is, though.
It's interesting.
JPEG Mafia.
Yeah, wow. All capital letters, all one word.
Oh wow.
JPEG Mafia.
Okay.
I saw him last year. He opened for Turnstile here at I think it was at the Uptown Theater. I think it was at the Uptown Theater.
Okay.
But yeah, he's a very he's his own producer, and he's a very sample heavy, chaotic, noisy producer.
Fascinating.
Their collaborative album is great. Arm & Hammer, they're a hip hop duo. Billy Woods and Elucid. They released an album I think just last week that is phenomenal. Animal Collective, one of my absolute favorite bands. They released their latest album like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay,
I've been listening to them a lot
this
year.
I know the name, but I've not. What can you describe them?
Merriweather Post Pavilion is their most popular album for sure.
Like the venue?
Yeah, that's named after. They're from Baltimore.
Okay.
A lot of their songs reference Baltimore, but they, their first few years was just not very commercially appealing at all. It's like noise collages and just them recording out in the middle of a forest, just screams and banging on instruments and whatnot.
Wow.
And then by their 4th or 5th album, they kind of started streamlining it into more song structures. And then by 2009, 2010, they were full on experimental pop band.
Okay.
And they still experiment quite a bit within that pop mentality.
Wow.
There's psychedelic stuff, there's more really noisy stuff, but they're another one of those bands from album to album they still have their same sound, but they experiment and pivot around that sound in so many different ways. And this last album that they just released and the album before it are their 2 probably mellowest albums, which came after a pretty long period of relative inactivity from the band. And then it's kind of not a second peak, but it's these 2 albums that they've released back to back over the past 2 years. It's okay, there's Animal Collective again. They're still doing it.
Cool.
So, just a little bit of everything.
Right on. So I guess the final looming question is, as we roll, into the middle point of the 10th month of the year, will there be a top 25 this year or no?
Probably not.
No.
I mean, for me personally, I'm always just keeping track.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I'll have any way to really.
You can't. I mean, you can post on Reddit, right?
I can, yeah.
And have you posted and people?
They have a thing on Reddit that I've contributed to in the past. For the month of December, you can sign up at the end of November, and you get one day, and you pick one album for the entire year, and you just talk about that album in its own post.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's kind of appealing, but it's not as cool as talking about multiple albums that you like.
But yeah, I'm going to sign up for that, see if there's an album I can talk about. But yeah, probably not going to do a full top 25 this year.
Okay, well, interesting that at some point as this date was nearing, a buddy just Instagram post, and it's him and his wife seeing Beck in Nashville. I think it was Nashville, and just absolute. It looked very cool. But I actually went and saw a show with him, a stand-up show a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, dude, he's like, dude, it was amazing," and I can't recall if he had seen him prior, but I was intrigued, and I've never like made a mental note to keep tabs, but I don't really feel like I'm ever like, oh shit, Beck's touring,
right?
So. For him, quick, and they have 2 little ones, so I think they were just kind of down and maybe spent the day and came. But anyway, I was like, I bet he does put on a good show.
I'm sure he does. Yeah.
So anyway, it's nearing both of our bedtimes here in this new employment realm that we're both in. Congrats to you, and hopefully once you. Have some distance between you and the training element, that it becomes a thing that you're into, can keep you out of that. I told you when you were maybe even the first time you sat down, you're like,
I'm super gung ho about this bar.
I know, and I was like, that shit will eat you alive,
absolutely
bro.
Did, yeah. I enjoyed it. I still, like I said, still pick up a shift here and there whenever. But
it's great that they are open to that.
Oh yeah, I left on great terms with them. I still love those guys. Like my coworkers at gyms are like family to me. I love all those people.
I still can't believe who's on the corner. So you're walking towards the alley to go into gyms, but if you kept going straight,
King G.
Yes.
Yeah, that's us too. Yeah.
I told you that night that I came down and saw you. It was like.
It's an entirely different vibe.
There was a security dude
on
the corner
but
on the actual intersection corner, because there were that many people kind of around the building.
Like a little patio area.
And I was like, what's going on here? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, is there a show? Is there a line to get in? And he's like, this is just what this is.
Yeah.
And I was like, who are these? Where do these people come from?
Yeah. King G gets packed.
I mean, a quick peek, I was like, I think most of these folks are a lot younger than I am.
Yeah.
And so that makes sense. But, I mean, do that many people like live around there that it's a quick visit?
Mostly just the Crossroads as a whole it's becoming like
destination.
Yeah, like what Westport was a few years ago before everyone started getting shot and everything.
Too soon. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I think Crossroads has become like there's just so many like great breweries and distilleries and like places to eat down there that people are like, yeah, that's a place to go to. And then we draw a very different crowd over at gyms.
Right.
Not very. We still get like quite a few of those young like I'm just here to drink type of people.
Sure.
But most of the people that come to gyms like they're there to like hang out for a bit, even when we're at our most packed,
right?
There's no one in there, just taking shot after shot and like ordering craft. Like they're just having a few beers, getting some nachos, getting some pretzels.
Ooh, do they have good nachos?
We have pretty good nachos.
Okay.
So there,
I might have to come down again. It's just totally a one-off every time you pick up a shift?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay. Right on. Well, I really appreciate you doing this. I won't put you on the spot to come back again, but if you do feel like it, then you have to pick
the next artist.
What we're gonna do.
All right.
And I would do, if you wanted to do Zeppelin, I would do that, but I mean, it's not.
Something more off the beaten path.
I wouldn't have to do a lot of prep for either of those particular two artists. It would become more of like
no, I'm just going through it again.
And I probably have known more about them in the past than I do now because I'm old and forget stuff. But nevertheless, thank you. I appreciate you being here. Good to see you as always.
You as well.
Thank you. See ya.